They say secrets buried in silence always find a way to scream. Some crawl back through memories, others wait in the faces of strangers, but the loudest ones come wrapped in love. Ndidi Amaka was young, beautiful, and untouchable. She moved through university like a goddess, cloaked in admiration and mystery. But in the quiet corners of her heart, she carried a shame too heavy to name, a secret buried in a dusty maternity home, a decision made in fear, a chapter closed, or so she thought, until love knocked on the wrong door. What began as a campus romance between two seemingly destined souls would unravel a story of deceit, blood, and fate, because what Ndidi buried years ago wasn't just a secret, it was a time bomb, and the countdown has just reached 0.
She was young, she was wild, chasing dreams with a painted smile. Then a night she broke inside, 2 little lives were left behind. She walked away, said goodbye, told herself you have to survive. Dancing queens never stay asleep, they rise again when love was deep. Now their children she forgot her found each other. She held her hand to going, she's his sister. The truth came crashing like a stormy tide, and all they had were buried cries from long ago. Buried cries. Our love abuse was never meant to grow.
Ndidi Amaka was the star of Eastern University. She was so beautiful that everyone, both boys and girls, would stop and stare when she walked by. Her hips moved like a song, her laugh sounded like a beautiful bell, and her Instagram page was full of amazing pictures of her looking glamorous, traveling to exciting places and showing off her fantastic style. She always wore fancy wigs and designer clothes, looking perfect from head to toe. But deep down, under all that perfection, Ndidi was hiding a big secret. It was a secret that hurt her inside, like a wound she couldn't show anyone. The big secret was that she was going to have a baby. The news hit her like a giant wave, making her feel completely lost and scared. This wasn't just any baby. It was a baby from a secret relationship she had with one of her teachers, a lecturer from the mass communication department. He was a married man, and when Ndidi told him about the baby, he got very angry and threatened her. Her options? Hide, deny, disappear. It was a bitter pill, but survival meant silence. She felt like she had no choices. She could try to hide the baby, pretend it wasn't true, or even run away and disappear. It was a very hard thing to deal with, but she knew that to stay safe, she had to keep quiet. Ndidi was desperate to make the baby go away. She tried everything she could think of, hoping the pregnancy would just disappear. She drank strange tea she heard about, and she even found someone who offered her some pills, promising they would help. Each time she felt sick and scared, but nothing worked. The baby stayed, growing inside her, a constant reminder of her secret and the danger she was in. Every failed attempt made her feel even more trapped and alone, like there was no way out of her difficult situation. So Ndidi became a master at pretending. She told her roommates that she had a problem with her stomach, like an ulcer, which made her tummy look bigger sometimes. This was her excuse for why her belly might start to swell. She started wearing clothes that were loose and flowing, like long dresses and big baggy sweaters, even when it was hot outside. Her life became a performance, full of made-up stories and reasons for everything she did. She had to be very careful with every step she took and every word she said. Even with all the lies, nobody suspected anything was wrong. Her makeup was always perfect, covering any signs of tiredness or worry on her face. She walked with a careful, planned way, making sure her movements didn't give away her secret. She avoided certain activities, saying she felt tired or unwell, which her friends understood because of her ulcer. Her secret was hidden safely under all her layers of lies and the careful way she acted every single day. She was living a double life, one that was glamorous and outgoing on the outside, and one that was full of fear and secrecy on the inside. Every morning, Ndidi would wake up with a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She worried about what would happen if someone found out. What if her parents, who were so proud of her, discovered the truth? What about her friends who looked up to her? The thought of facing their disappointment and judgment was terrifying. She spent hours in front of the mirror, practicing her expressions, making sure her smile looked genuine, even when she was breaking inside. The stress was immense, and she often felt overwhelmed by the weight of her secret. She started avoiding places where she might run into her lecturer, terrified he would say something or look at her in a way that would give them away. When she did see him in the hallways, her heart would pound and she would quickly look away, pretending not to notice him. The campus, which used to feel like a fun and lively place, now felt like a cage, every corner a potential place for her secret to be revealed. She felt isolated, even though she was surrounded by people, because no one truly knew what she was going through. Ndidi found herself becoming very good at making excuses to skip social events. She would say she had to study, or that she wasn't feeling well, or that she had a family emergency. Her friends started to notice her absence, but they didn't push too hard, respecting her privacy. The isolation while keeping her secret safe also made her feel incredibly lonely. She longed to talk to someone, to share the burden she was carrying, but fear kept her lips sealed. As weeks turned into months, Ndidi's belly grew more noticeable, making her even more paranoid. She bought even bigger clothes, often wearing 2 sweaters at a time, even in the heat. She started staying in her room more often, only going out when absolutely necessary. The fear of being discovered was a constant companion, a shadow that followed her everywhere. She couldn't shake the feeling that at any moment her carefully constructed world of lies could come crashing down. Despite all the fear and the heavy secret, a tiny spark of something else began to grow inside Ndidi. Sometimes, late at night, when everyone else was asleep, she would gently touch her growing belly. A part of her, a very small quiet part, felt a strange connection to the life inside her. She knew she was in a terrible situation, but she couldn't deny the warmth that sometimes spread through her when she thought about the baby. It was a complicated mix of fear, sadness, and a tiny, almost imperceptible glimmer of hope for a future she couldn't yet imagine. When labor crept in, like a thief in the night, she slipped away to a midwife in a hidden maternity home in Enugu, far from campus eyes. In the early hours of a foggy morning, she gave birth to not one but 2 children, a baby boy and a girl. She stared at them for mere seconds before looking away. Her heart didn't skip, didn't flutter. There was no joy, only panic. These babies in her mind were a threat to everything she had built: her image, her future, her freedom. She made the decision before the midwife could even ask. Find someone, sell them. The midwife made calls. Within 48 hours, 2 agents arrived. The boy was sold first to an agent who claimed she had a rich client desperate for a child. She didn't ask questions. She didn't want to know. The envelope filled with script naira notes was all that mattered. The girl was taken by a couple from Port Harcourt. Ndidi didn't catch their names. She only signed the forged documents they gave her, collected her share, and went back to campus like nothing happened. A night of sin, erased like a Snapchat story. She graduated with a second-class upper, posted glamorous photos, and began a new life. The babies, to her, were ghosts from a night she raised. In interviews, she told stories of how she fought through school, never hinted at the war she waged with her conscience. Meanwhile, in Lagos, a powerful man of God, Pastor Joel Ifeanyi, cradled a newborn boy in his arms. His wife, Deborah, posed for pictures on the hospital bed. Church members rejoiced. Little did they know that the baby wasn't born to them, but bought. and the pastor had blood ties he never imagined. Pastor Joel had everything: influence, wealth, and a mega congregation that treated him like a prophet. But there was one thing he didn't have: an heir. After years of trying and multiple miscarriages, Deborah grew bitter and desperate. Their bedroom was a place of tears more than laughter. They reached out to an agent through a friend in the medical field. The condition? Discretion. The lie was rehearsed. Deborah faked a pregnancy using pillows, then custom prosthetics. Church women touched her stomach and cried tears of joy, oblivious to the theater unfolding. When the baby came, a hush surrounded the hospital. Cameras flashed. Gifts poured in. The baby was named Samuel. God has heard. The lie was sealed with prayer and praise, and no one doubted the miracle. Years passed. Samuel grew into a young man with calm eyes and a commanding voice. He was intelligent, God-fearing, and adored. He became a youth pastor by 20. The congregation saw him as the future of the ministry. At the University of Ibadan, Samuel met Elankim. Their first conversation was over a spilled drink at a campus fellowship meeting. It felt accidental, but fate had been waiting. That clumsy moment planted a seed. Ella was unlike other girls, poised, reserved, and radiating grace. She was studying law and carried herself like a woman trained by queens. Their connection was instant, but slow burning. Moments turned into years. They prayed together, studied together, and soon began dating. Neither of them could explain why their bond felt familiar, deep, like something older than love itself. Friends called them inseparable, and even professors noticed the spark. Samuel took Ella home one Christmas. Pastor Joel and Deborah were thrilled. They loved her. The church loved her. The congregation declared, "This is the wife of our future general overseer." The wedding was set. Engagement banners filled church walls. Hashtags trended. Couples looked up to them. Elders blessed them. It seemed like a match made in heaven, a holy union destined to expand the church's legacy. But the church had a tradition. All intending couples must undergo a full compatibility test. Medical, spiritual, and genetic. Pastor Joel approved it casually, never suspecting the test would unlock Pandora's box. However, just as things were being put together for the upcoming celebration, the routine premarital blood test delivered a shocking and unforeseen revelation. The results were sent directly to the marriage committee. When they opened the envelope, sealed with a red wax, and scanned the lines of the report, they couldn't believe their eyes. The committee members immediately suspected a lab mistake and quickly ordered another test from a different private hospital, hoping for a different outcome. All the while, Pastor Joel, Samuel's father, was away with his wife at a conference, completely oblivious to the turmoil unfolding back home. When the second set of results came back, confirming a 99.99% sibling match, the marriage committee was left stunned. Following the church's practices, and despite Samuel being the pastor's son, they called him in for a private meeting. The committee began to interrogate Samuel, pressing him on how he and Ella had met and the details of their relationship. Both test results were presented to him, but Samuel, in disbelief and shock, simply couldn't accept them. He was convinced there had to be some error, some misunderstanding. When his father, Pastor Joel, finally returned from the conference, an elder in the church met him with the two identical shocking reports that Wednesday evening while it was raining. He smiled casually as he opened it, but his expression froze when his eyes scanned the lines. DNA test, 99.99 genetic match. Not cousins, not distant relatives, siblings. Joel's hands trembled. His heart pounded louder than the thunder outside. He dropped the file, clutched his chest, and sank into his chair. Lord, "What is this?" he whispered. Deborah walked in moments later. "Honey, the decorators need approval for the church banner." "What's wrong?" Joel looked up with pale, sweaty skin. "The text. It says Samuel and Ella are siblings. This must be an error." Deborah's hands flew to her mouth. No, that can't be. This must be a lab mistake. We must do it again." "Honey," he said, "we already have 2 tests here confirming it." Faced with the irrefutable evidence, Pastor Joel broke down and confessed a long-held secret. He revealed that Samuel was not his biological son. They had been adopted many years ago through the services of a woman he referred to only as an agent. The pastor explained the circumstances of the adoption, detailing how he had acquired Samuel as a baby. Samuel was called in by his father. The young man walked in with a broad smile, thinking it was about wedding logistics. "Dad, I was thinking we should use a live choir for the reception." "Sit down, son," Joel said, voice low. The room grew cold, the silence unbearable. Joel fumbled for the words. "But how do you tell your son he's about to marry his twin?" He swallowed hard, looked his son in the eyes, and said, "Samuel, you are adopted." The words dropped like a thunderclap in the boy's heart. "What?" Samuel blinked, confused. "What do you mean adopted? Since when?" Deborah entered slowly, her eyes swollen from silent tears. "We couldn't have children. We faked my pregnancy. We bought you, but we didn't know where you came from, not exactly." Samuel stood up, pacing. "And Ella? Why do the text say she's my sister?" Joel stepped closer. "We don't know everything yet, but it means you were born with a twin, and somehow you found each other." Samuel clutched his chest. The love of his life, the woman he wanted to build forever with. "His sister? No, I don't believe this. I need to see the agent, the woman who gave me to you." Joel nodded. "We've tried to find her, but she disappeared years ago. Changed numbers, changed address, but I'll keep looking." That night, Samuel didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, listening to his heart shatter pieces by pieces. Ella deserved the truth, but how would he tell her? The next day, he visited her hostel. He held her hand and whispered, "Ella, we need to talk. It's about us and something deeper than we imagined." And he explained everything. Ella broke down. "No, that's not possible. My parents, they never told me I was adopted." She ran to her adoptive mother that same evening, tears pouring down her cheeks. Her mother, cornered by the truth, confessed, "Yes, you were adopted. We couldn't conceive either. We used an agent. We never wanted to tell you this." Ella collapsed on the floor. The perfect life she thought she had lived crumbled before her eyes. Every memory, every photo, every bedtime story suddenly felt like a lie. Days turned into weeks. Pastor Joel intensified the search for the elusive agent. Finally, a clue, a woman in Kogi who used to facilitate adoptions under a false name. Her current alias was Mrs. Adebayo. Samuel's mind reeled with this newfound information. The pain of the revelation was immense, but intertwined with it was a burning desire for answers. He needed to understand his true origins and, more importantly, locate the woman who had facilitated his adoption. This agent held the key to unlocking his past, to understanding who he was before becoming Pastor Joel's son. A faint clue from his father, a mention of the agent having ties to Kogi, ignited a spark of hope. Without informing Ella, Samuel secretly embarked on a journey to Kogi, driven by an urgent need to confront the woman and piece together the fragments of his identity. He scoured the towns and villages, following every lead, his determination unwavering despite the lack of concrete information. After days of relentless searching, Samuel finally located the woman. Her name was Mrs. Adebayo, and she ran a small, unassuming business. When Samuel confronted her with the story, hoping for a confession and an explanation, Mrs. Adebayo vehemently denied any involvement. she not only dismissed his claims, but also threatened him, warning him to cease his inquiries and leave her alone. Her cold demeanor and outright denial left Samuel feeling frustrated and defeated. Disheartened but not entirely deterred, Samuel returned to Lagos and recounted the entire encounter to Pastor Joel. He explained how Mrs. Adebayo had denied everything and threatened him, confirming his suspicion that she was indeed the person they were looking for, despite her denials. Pastor Joel, seeing Samuel's distress and the agent's uncooperative stance, knew they needed a different approach. Armed with old photographs of Samuel as a baby and other corroborating evidence from the adoption, Pastor Joel and Samuel made a second joint trip to Kogi. They were determined to get to the truth, hoping that the pastor's presence and the physical evidence would compel Mrs. Adebayo to confess. However, upon their arrival, they discovered that Mrs. Adebayo had seemingly vanished, having moved from her previous location. It seemed she had anticipated their return. Undeterred, Pastor Joel and Samuel pursued every lead, paying for information from locals who had known Mrs. Adebayo. Their persistence finally paid off. They tracked her down to a more secluded location within Kogi. Faced with the undeniable evidence and the unwavering presence of Pastor Joel and Samuel, Mrs. Adebayo, realizing her charade was over, finally broke down and confessed to her role in Samuel's adoption, shedding light on the long-buried truth. "Yes, I sold you that baby, but I didn't know he had a twin. The mother, her name was Ndidi Amaka." Joel's heart sank. "Ndidi? My sister's daughter?" Back in Lagos, Joel confronted Ndidi, now a motivational speaker with a large online following. "Where are the children you gave birth to 25 years ago?" Ndidi froze. The tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know they would find each other. I thought I buried that chapter forever. I was scared, uncle. I didn't want to lose everything." Samuel chose to disappear for months. He needed healing. Ella too vanished from the public eye, but eventually they re-emerged, stronger, not as lovers, but as siblings who survived a terrible twist of fate. Pastor Joel stood before his congregation 1 year later. "I have sinned," he said, voice breaking. "But from our mistakes, God can birth healing. Even when truth hurts, it sets us free." The church wept, not just for him, but for the children who almost loved each other to destruction. Sometimes, the truth does not come to punish. It comes to cleanse, but it never arrives quietly. Samuel and Ella stood side by side on the church altar, not as bride and groom, but as siblings, bonded by a storm they never asked for. The wedding was cancelled, the fairy tale dissolved, but in its place stood something even stronger, the courage to confront the past. Ndidi vanished from the public eye. Her name now whispered more in prayers than praise. Pastor Joel faced his congregation, no longer hiding behind miracles, but confessing his part in the lie. Redemption began with broken voices and teary eyes, and in the ashes of near tragedy, a lesson bloomed. No matter how long it takes, truth always comes home, and love, real love, can survive even the deepest betrayal.